Watcher, and welcome to Mandatory Redistribution Party. This episode is about emus, rabbits, pigs, the other pigs, in brackets, the police, and sports. It's a thematic mess, but it's all high-grade stuff. It's more of a buffet than a meal, and if you work out the timestamps between sections, you can listen to them in pretty much any order you like, and it'll make approximately as much sense. Enjoy! Bon appetit! Schmarkelijk! Are you aware of the Australian Emu War?
Of the Emu Wars. I know, I've never heard of that.
So, when Australia was still, fairly newish, the main thing they wanted was to get their agriculture off the ground.
Yeah.
We need to get farms and we need them to work. But these emus are migratory.
Okay.
And so they would just come to the territory that was now farms. They could just kick down a wooden fence.
Yeah.
And they could just eat whatever they like.
Oh, yeah, bad lads.
I mean, and as a farmer, as a human man,
yeah,
you can't go out and shoo them off.
Oh, yeah.
They'll shoo you off back
huge,
into your house.
Really scary.
And so the farmers would go into the local government, or I don't entirely know how Australia was governed at this point, but they'd say, look, we can't. There's a massive push to get lots of farming out. We can't, because they will come in seasonally and wreck everything and just eat everything.
Yeah.
So how are we supposed to do that? So they declared war against emus. Now...
It's not a war, is it?
They got the army involved.
Yeah, but the emus didn't have an army.
You can declare war against something that doesn't want to be at war. That's often how wars start off. But here's because the story gets better. The story gets better, right? So World War I had just happened. So that's around the time we're talking about. I don't think World War II has happened yet. I think.
Okay.
Which means that the Gatling gun, the machine gun, is this very new sexy weapon.
Yeah.
So they're like
sexy.
Well, it was at the time, because they were like, we need to get this. This is the most effective weapon you can get.
Sexiest gun.
But the problem with machine guns is that at this time they were big and heavy, stationary. Yeah. And do you know what isn't stationary?
An emu.
Emus can just leave.
Yeah.
They'll get some of them, but the emus will just leave.
And then presumably pincer movement around the trench.
No, just leave.
Oh,
yeah. The emus didn't get into the spirit.
They've actually got much better strategy than Nicholas II during World War I.
Right, yeah. Just head at them.
Yeah.
And then when you're there, what if we don't get there? Hang on, listen to my plan. When you get there. So what they did then was they tried to mount the machine gun on a car.
Oh, fuck. I thought you were going to say someone was trying to mount the emus then.
What, mount a machine gun on the emu?
Either mount a machine gun on the emu or the Aboriginals cottoned on. Alternative universe, the Aboriginals stopped us fucking conquering them.
You're thinking of a weaponized chocobo.
Yeah.
Even then, turning the machine gun was impossible, or it meant that to chase them, the machine gun added so much weight to the back of the vehicle. And after, I think they tried once and then it failed, and they tried again and then it failed. And so historically, Australia has technically lost 2 wars to emus.
Fucking hell, I heard that.
But the way they solved it in the end was just going down to bounties. And so people just take them down on a one-by-one basis without having to try to exterminate all the emus through a tactical strike, which was not possible at that time.
It's a real vindication of the market. So don't do stuff with the state with the woman, but you just outsource it.
Yeah, just get G4S in. If you got G4S now, emus would be gone.
Yeah.
Emus would be something we were aware of that did exist in the 20th century.
Makes me think of the Napoleon rabbit thing.
What's that?
The battlefield is a scene of constant chaos. The winner will be the one who controls that chaos, both his own and the enemy's.
These are the words of Napoleon Bonaparte, the average heighted emperor of the French from 1804 till 1814, and then a little bit in 1815. Napoleon was one of history's greatest commanders, right up there with Riker.
It's a total fabrication.
His strategies are still studied at military schools. You know, when the US Army invade Iran, they might need a cavalry charge. Napoleon's defeats were rare, the most famous being the 1815 Battle of Waterloo. But my favourite is the surrender of 1807. Now, in 1815, Bonaparte lost to the combined forces of the 7th Coalition, 118,000 men, 156 cannons.
That's a lot of cannons.
In the summer of 1807, the Emperor of France was defeated by a horde of rabbits. A gregarious burrowing mammal with long ears, long hind legs and a short tail, the rabbit is not renowned for its military prowess. So in 1807, Bonaparte realised he was losing quite badly in Russia, what with the 340,000 of his men dead, 50,000 deserting, and 80,000 of the smartest and bravest boys just deserting. Napoleon signed a treaty to finalise that he'd failed. And to celebrate, Napoleon had his mates round for a sumptuous luncheon and a rabbit hunt. What better way to commemorate the loss of hundreds of thousands of lives than hunting some helpless animals? Turns out this Bonaparte is a bit of a dick.
Bonaparte.
Bit of a dick?
Bonaparte.
Bit of a dick? Napoleon got his chief of staff to organise everything, and then the chief of staff wants to impress the top brass of the empire's military, so he caged up probably too many rabbits, hundreds, maybe thousands. So Napoleon and his pals, done with the sumptuous luncheon, begin to creep through the grass, and the rabbit horde is let loose. The plan was that the rabbits are going to, run away once they're out of the cages, and then Napoleon and his lads shoot them, and there's so many that wherever they shoot, they're going to hit something.
Gotta make sure the powerful people feel powerful.
But instead, they turn on Napoleon. The hunted becomes the hunter. And given that they could never have found thousands of wild rabbits so quickly, and defo just bought some pet ones, what the rabbits were hunting for was like food, lettuce, cuddles. That doesn't seem dangerous or threatening, but in the moment, little furry creatures run towards you, thousands of them. It was pretty stressful. But they start off laughing, right? The most powerful man in the world and his pals just laughing at this horde of rabbits coming towards them, and then the laughter turns to horror. A surge of cuddle-hungry fluff balls clambers up Napoleon's legs, clinging to his trousers. They even got on his jacket. Napoleon summoned his men, who tried to remove the rabbits with sticks. But there's just too many. Outnumbered, Napoleon retreats to his carriage. I'm going to directly quote from my source here, The Campaigns of Napoleon by David G. Chandler. Vainly did Napoleon's men try to beat the tide back with whips. With a finer understanding of Napoleonic strategy than most of his generals, the rabbit horde divided into two wings and poured around the flanks of the party and headed for the imperial coach. Yeah, a pincer movement. Are they rabbits or crabs? Am I right? Do you get it? You having that? You having that, mate? You having it? Hey, you having that? You having that? Napoleon had no option but to beat a hasty and disgruntled retreat, but the coach had already started to move before the last furry invader had been flung from the window. Yeah, so this David G. Chandler guy actually taught at military schools like Sandhurst in the UK and the US Marine Corps University. So somewhere there's some Marines learning not to underestimate a rabbit horde. That's on a revision flashcard. Anyway, most powerful man in Europe got owned by some bunnies.
Another imperial power fallen to just animals. That's nice.
Nature triumphs.
Wasn't there a Danish myth about a dog that had become king as well? Not a king, but a duke or equivalent. That someone loved his dog so much that he turned the dog into...
There's the Caligula horse senator.
Right, I think it's of the same ilk,
yeah.
isn't it? I've given my animal this thing.
Maybe it's Nero's horse senator. One of the Romans' book made a horse a senator.
Why not? And also, there's a great history of putting animals on trial in the UK. Are you aware of that?
Oh, big time.
And I'm kind of remember what it was. It was about just trying to extend Christian morality to horses, to all animals.
They would put, do you know, in the trials, they would put other animals as witnesses.
As witnesses, yeah.
And they hanged pigs and stuff. Wild hogs.
And they genuinely believed that by hanging the pig,
it was a deterrent.
And letting the other pigs see that, the other pigs would be like, fuck. Well, I'd better not do that.
Yeah.
That's wild that, like, we're talking hundreds of years ago.
Wild.
But, like, why didn't people realise that animals can't... Not that they can't have morality. Fine if you think morality has to be universal, right?
No, I don't think they're on the level of deterrence. I think it's more they're seeing justice as mechanized vengeance. So
okay, yeah, that
pig
makes sense.
Ate all my fucking cabbages.
Yeah.
String that fucker up. Like, rather than deterrence. I think, because some people support the death.
I've read some stuff. There's a guy who was a historian on this, right? And that was his speciality.
Yeah.
And he came away believing, like, within their own court records of this, it was believed that it would be a deterrent. Wow. It was believed it would influence the animals' behaviour that were left.
See, that's attributing a lot of agency to animals.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a strange way it's a strange way to think that the animal is that intelligent, but you're going to treat them like an object. Do you know what I mean? You're, on one hand, attributing them like a human level of sentience, but on the other hand, being like, you are a tool that I use.
Fuck.
It's so strange.
Because I just thought it was a deterrence. I think it'd be like people who just support the death penalty despite all the evidence that it doesn't have any deterrent effect, or the opposite, right? That places with loads of death penalty, there's still a really high crime, blah blah blah. But they really do think,
they made sure the animals could see it.
Fuck.
Yeah.
What do you mean made sure? Brought them to see it from the farm?
I think they'd do the hanging near the farm.
Right.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
It's so strange.
But would the crime be explained? So they would have. So it's not just that they're seeing the pigs are seeing another hanged pig. They are assumed to know what that pig has done to do that.
Isn't that
so? How is that information being?
But that's how a hanging happens anyway. A hanging is always a public event.
Yes,
where it says we are hanging this following individual.
With humans, they go, we're hanging this pedo for X, Y. I don't know why I said.
Yeah, but why can't?
Yeah,
but why can't you just apply the same? We're hanging this pedo pig.
Because it's another fucking leap, isn't it? To go to the pigs. Oh, they understand. They don't just need to understand. Oh, there's a dead pig. I don't want to be that pig. Yeah. I reckon a pig probably does get that. Dead? I reckon a pig can look at a dead pig and go, fuck, no, I don't want to do that.
I don't want to be that.
But that pig can't then go, oh, that pig ate John's cabbages.
That pig ate someone else's property.
Yeah, the pig...
I'd better learn where the delineation between the commons and private land is.
Hang the pig. Like ding a bell and all the other pigs gather round and they go, listen, you lot. That pig would still be alive. It would be the hanging, wouldn't it? So the naughty pig, naughty pig's there, stressing the fuck out. Someone's putting a noose around it, and then the pigs have been gathered. Do you know what he's done? And do you know why? And all the other pigs look up. They don't know why. They don't know why. And he says, "Yeah, John's cabbages. Yeah, all of them. That was John's food for a month, and this fucker ate them." And that's why we're killing him now. Do you all understand? And the pig's just looking back.
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, what's going on? Is there food? Why are we here?
Why have we been summoned over here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you aware of Temple Grandin?
Temple
Grandin?
No.
Temple Grandin is known for two things. I think she's fascinating. One is she was like massive... in autism advocacy. She was a professor, realized she had autism and was like, okay, you can be functional and a human being, I have autism. I have autism. And she was just big on like humanizing people with autism.
Right.
But also her speciality was in livestock management.
Okay.
And she, you know how pressure on the head is good for people with certain types of
neurological
sensory stuff. And she realized she could calm cows down by also strapping things that apply pressure to their head. And she came up with ways of leading cows into slaughterhouses that didn't cause them to bolt. They sort of go in like in a seashell movement. They're like going in a circle endlessly round. Because when you move in a circle,
a spiral.
So the cows feel like I'm uncomfortable about where I'm going. I feel scared. Luckily, I see that the path moves away from that. Oh, thank God.
Right.
Because they just don't have the necessary spatial imaging. So they just get led further and further into the slaughterhouse.
Oh.
Because bolting, cows getting scared and just not moving because they're like, something's wrong.
Yeah.
That there's not a huge amount you can do about that because cows are huge. And if they don't want to go somewhere, you can't realistically make the whole herd go in there. And that's also where scapegoating came from. You aware of that? They'd just get them to be friends with a goat and be like, we trust this goat. And the goat's like, hey, do you want to go in here? Oh, we're normally scared of over there. Don't worry. He'll be fine. And just lead the whole herd into the slaughterhouse and the goat's obviously fine. And the cows are like, wow, that goat was actually a mole.
Whoa. Imagine if the cows then hanged the goat.
That would be great.
How fucked would it be?
And then show the humans, like, get all the humans around.
Got all the humans.
Look at what this goat has done. Although that was like quite a naive version of the cows being like...
actually the goat doesn't have all the agency.
Well, just the idea the cows think the goat was working alone.
Yeah.
And that the humans are finding this out. Oh, wow, that goat was a baddie. We never knew. Well, let's just go back to how things used to be. Oh, we got you a new goat.
Problem with that kind of punitive individualistic justice system, isn't it?
But it's hard to hang a system. Oh, that would be a nice way to do it. Because you know how, like, trying to explain systemic injustice can be really difficult. What if you got, like, the whole of Parliament, like the building, in a massive noose and sort of suspended it in a noose like
around the
on
Big
a crane.
Ben clock.
I was going to say like just
out of the earth.
Yeah, you've got the noose around just underneath because if the clock tower is the face, you'd want the noose to be underneath that, and then you just suspend it hanging over the Thames, and it'll be like for crimes. That's what it'll say. For crimes.
No specification.
What's the most populist, clean, succinct way you can say it?
Bad.
Yeah.
Arrow.
So you think for crimes isn't clear enough, but just bad.
I think crimes is too legalistic.
Yeah, you're right. If we say for crimes, we're already leaning on there being a legal framework.
The legislature, they make the laws. You know, they're making.
So it's not for crimes; it's just bad.
Yeah.
And then maybe like a sad emoji.
Yeah.
So that just people from other languages can.
Sad emoji, angry emoji.
Yeah, aubergine. Then maybe a crown, and then maybe like one of those stop signs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then get all the other legislatures to look up, but get all those buildings, ding a bell, and then all those buildings come and look. And you point.
Look at what this has done.
Parliament and go, look.
Yeah.
Look.
It ate the working class's cabbages.
Okay, so I've done a bit more research on this. There are a few theories about why people actually tried and hanged animals. One popular belief is that justice and law were considered divine in origin, and since mankind is there to govern over animals, any disruption of the peace, God's peace, must be visibly restored through some kind of formal ritualized event. Punishment was essentially religious in nature, and a way to show God that you're doing your bit to look after the world. Another theory, which I find more interesting still, was that it provided people a way to govern the commons, the common land that was shared by everyone, without actively policing it. The presence of any kind of police force would imply a governing body, and that's just not how the commons works. The commons is a common land that is owned by everyone. So having this kind of populist public trial and public hanging was the way of certain people to say to other farmers, look, you need to stop letting your pigs run amok in these shared spaces, or look what will happen, they'll die uselessly like this, instead of bringing your family meat and coin. But there are some scholars that put forward a more interesting theory still. They argue that the trials themselves don't resemble religious divine justice, or look like theatrical pageantry to punish their fellow farmers. They look exactly like what they're claiming to be, real trials, where the evidence being submitted and considered looks like they're genuinely trying the animals as moral agents. In 1457, in Savigny, France, a sow and 6 piglets killed a 5-year-old boy. There was a judge, 2 prosecutors, 8 witnesses, and a defence attorney. It was the real deal. What's more, the judge deemed the piglets innocent because they were immature. They were too young to make clear choices, and they had been abandoned by their mother, so they'd have a harder time learning and internalising the proper code of conduct of the village. In 1379, another boy was attacked. The court determined that one herd initiated the attack while the other merely joined in, but the judge sentenced both herds because their cries during the melee were said to be evidence of their approval of the attack, whether they were responsible for initiating it or not. In 1750, a man and an ass stood trial for bestiality. The man was sentenced to death, but many witnesses stood to testify for the ass's character and said she was, and I quote, "in word and deed and in all her habits of life a most honest creature," and it was determined that she was the innocent victim of a deviant master and was found innocent. Historians since the 19th century have found this practice baffling. If not to appease God or to please each other, why would people do this make-believe pretend trials and assigning such agency to beasts and go to the trouble of making them stand for a whole trial? Well, the theory goes that it's because they genuinely considered these animals capable of rational moral decisions. Why? Well, because before the 19th century, when feedlots and packing plants turned agriculture into an industry and animals into tools and objects, pre-industrial agrarian societies involved regular interaction with animals in a relationship that felt more like family members or colleagues than owner and object. A 17th century farmer would spend up to 16 hours a day observing and caring for and working alongside domesticated beasts. They worked with them. They saw them make decisions throughout the day. We do not interact with pigs. We stuff them into tiny cages and push their distended bodies into slaughterhouses. Perhaps these practices in the 17th century feel so backwards and barbaric to us because if we were to consider it otherwise, it would prickle too sensitively at our own conscience. Have you ever seen the mysterious letters ACAB scrawled in a dusty underpass squirreled away under the guiding light of an encircled A? Are you curious as to what these arcane hieroglyphs might mean? It's pretty simple. The A stands for Avril Lavigne, the naughty skate punk queen who popularised the idea that a skating teenager might amount to something later in life.
So why don't you swipe left on him? Hello? Are you there? Are you reading this? Well, I don't like you anyway. You're horrible. You're horrible when you've got a gross arm and you're altogether rank.
As for the rest, ACAB stands for Assigned Cop at Birth. Some people believe you're not born a police officer. It's something that society confers upon you once you're old enough to twirl a baton and chokehold a black teenager. Lol, only JK. ACAB, or Acab, stands for All Cops Are Bastards. It's a phrase that naturally has been co-opted and used by all manner of groups who find themselves the natural adversaries of the police. Though in my experience, I associate it most strongly with direct action anarchist groups and or the teenagers that ape their aesthetic. How you feel about the phrase all cops are bastards is a handy litmus test to chart your personal radicalisation journey. Let's begin.
Stage 1.
I'm not comfortable with the word bastard because it's a swear word.
Prognosis.
You're a Tory.
Response.
The act of labelling some words good and some words bad are class signifiers to distance ourselves from and police the language and culture of the poor. Swearing is fine, good even.
Stage 2.
What's wrong with the police?
Prognosis.
Centrist dad, at best.
Response.
The police are the boot that carries out the sanctioned violence of the state. They are a force to suppress and control the disempowered, you dummy.
Stage 3.
all police are bastards. Well, what about the good ones? The administrators, the nice officers who are just one day away from retirement, the people who lay down their lives to stop crime.
Prognosis.
Normal/naive.
Response.
My uncle's a police officer and he's okay. Well, okay's a bit of a stretch. He's kind of boring and he's got a very strange porcelain doll collection. And for a while he had my piano and there was a bit of confusion about whether or not I'd lent it to him or whether I'd given it to him. And before you leap on me for being bougie enough to own a piano, it was an opportunistic purchase during the 2007 floods. I was living in East Yorkshire, which was one of the epicentres of the floods, and loads of people moved out precious objects like pianos into a big piano warehouse, and that got so full that they were basically going for peanuts. And anyway, it's gone now because it was too big to go up to my mum's council flat. So there, take that. I'm normal. Anyway, it's not about if my uncle's a nice guy or not, because Acab isn't about making a sweeping statements about the individual characteristics about every police officer. It's about making an analysis of the police as structural agents. You can see this kind of idea in Marx. Marx regularly refers to the capitalists like they're a person, which even he was worried might be confusing, so he included this preface to the first edition of Capital.
To prevent possible misunderstanding, let me say this. I do not by any means depict the capitalist and the landowner in rosy colours, but individuals are dealt with here only insofar as they are the personification of economic categories and the bearers of particular class relations and interests.
So when Marx talks about what the capitalist does, he's not talking about anyone in particular, but referring to how capitalism works within our economic system. Anyone familiar with #NotAllMen should recognise the logic at work here. Women complaining about men online might find people in their replies saying, actually not all men are like that. But the term men doesn't have to refer to every individual man on the planet. It refers to the category of men, and how that relates to the category of women. Saying you've discovered a kindly man who lives down a well and hasn't even seen a woman, let alone oppressed one, is basically irrelevant. And so too is the logic being employed when we talk about the capitalist. And so too is the logic being employed when we talk about the police. Just want to say at this point that what I'm offering here really is just our reading of the slogan. Acab has spread pretty far and wide, even to racist groups I don't think are going to be using the same kind of structural analysis that I do. And even to, being used as knuckle tattoos on petty criminals who probably just hate the police. So we're not talking about every individual police officer. We're talking about policing. Policing renders you a bastard in your role as an agent that shapes society. So how does policing shape society? Well, firstly, the police work to protect the class interests of the ruling class and subjugate any elements of the subordinate class that might threaten those interests. A great example would be during the miners' strike. 6,000 officers charged and attacked striking and picketing miners in Orgreave in South Yorkshire as one of many attempts to break the morale of a strike that was challenging the power of government. It was described by The Guardian journalist David Conn as the most violent police behaviour ever seen in a modern industrial dispute. The following legal process was described by the barrister Michael Mansfield as the worst example of a mass frame-up in this country this century. To this day, official records of this event are suppressed by the British government, so while the extent of the violence isn't known officially, iconic imagery of bleeding wounded men and an officer on horseback striking out at a female protester with a truncheon help illustrate how our keepers of the peace behave when the status quo is under threat. Additionally, in return for being violent enforcers of class inequality, police officers are granted the ability to act both above and beyond the law without consequence. For example, Scottish painter and decorator Harry Stanley was shot and killed by the police because they mistook him carrying a table leg as a gun. The officers were reinstated within the year. In 2005, the police mistook a Portuguese 27-year-old Jean-Charles de Menezes for one of the London bombers and shot at him 11 times in total. At an inquest, it was revealed an officer had deleted information, confirming the officers knew the victim was not carrying explosives before the incident. A police officer shot 26-year-old Azelle Rodney with 8 shotgun rounds through a car window, stating he believed Azelle was about to shoot him. An independent report revealed that Azelle did not have a gun. The New Zealand teacher and anti-far-right activist Blair Peach was struck and killed by an officer at an anti-Nazi demonstration in 1979. No officers were charged with misconduct, and the officer who was deemed most likely to have perpetrated it now works as a lecturer in corporate responsibility at the University of Sheffield. The death of Christopher Adler, a black British Army paratrooper who was taken into police custody after receiving a concussion at a nightclub. He died slowly in police custody as officers made monkey noises at him and accused him of putting it on. Between 1990 to 2011, just under 100 people died in police custody in the UK. Between those years, only one officer has been convicted for such a death. Of the many stories of police brutality, the themes of information suppression, false testimony by other officers, and a complete lack of consequences for the guilty are ever present. Additionally, the police force in the UK is an institutionally racist and sexist organisation, with only 21% of police force being female and only 6.6% coming from non-white ethnic groups. 12% of incidents in the UK involving police violence are against black and minority ethnic people, even though they only make up 3.3% of the population. 1/3 of people shot by the police since 2004 have been BAME. Over the past 6 years, there have been hundreds of sexual harassment claims made about police officers, of which only a fraction have led to further action. When hit by austerity, local police services disproportionately cut services and call-outs related to domestic violence over other kinds of crimes in order to conserve resources. Not only does the police stand as a major obstacle to social change by curtailing our political right to protest and demonstrate, ready and willing to use extreme force on any group seeking to actively challenge the status quo, but it also fulfills its duty of care to prevent crime in an unjust and unequal way, protecting and serving rich and wealthy, while either disregarding or actively harassing the disempowered and vulnerable. All cops are bastards.
So I've got this theory. I think people either go hard, agree, or hard, that's absurd. Which is that it is more difficult to get second place in any form of competition, to get second place on purpose, than it is to get first place at all.
Example. What?
Okay, so let's just say cycling 1 kilometre race. If you want to get first, yeah, you have to be the fastest cyclist in the race. But if you want to get second on purpose, you need to not only be almost as fast as the fastest cyclist, but you need to ensure you're in this narrow window, this tiny gap between the third fastest and first fastest. Which means even though you don't need to be as fast as the first fastest person, the addition of this new challenge to be incredibly accurate with your speed makes it harder overall than being first. So being second intentionally is harder than being first.
And this applies to everything.
Everything.
Any form of competition. Egg and spoon race.
Yeah. Counting as fast as you can.
So really second should be the prize.
That's what I'm thinking. Because being second on purpose
should still have number 2 on it, but should be gold.
Yeah.
First should be silver. Wait, no. The objective, the agreed upon objective of anyone engaged in a competition is to become first. But if you changed it so the objective was to become second, that would change the whole dynamic of every competition imaginable.
Everyone would sort of slow down a little bit. But then, if everyone was slowing down, okay, so on one level it works, right? Because if everyone is sort of slowing down, then being second becomes even tighter. It becomes an even narrower gap. So in fact, still intentionally being second at the end is even harder.
Imagine like a World Cup final and both teams are now trying to lose because victory in a World Cup is being second. So if you've got to the World Cup final, you have to get to the World Cup final to be second. So until the final, everyone's trying to win. And then as soon as you're in the final, you're trying to lose.
Yeah, you just want to be second. But you can fuck it and be so far ahead on points that even if you lose that last game, you still win.
I don't think that's how the World Cup works.
Okay, I don't know enough. I don't know enough about the World Cup.
Possibly, the Premier League.
But yeah, so what would happen? You would have second place would be the new first place. First place, I think, should be second place because it still is hard to be first.
But you can't know. My point is, I don't think you can change the criteria. I think if you're trying to get second place as you, and you know you want second place, not first, then it's rock hard. And that's where it's interesting. I think as soon as the competition, everyone's agreed is we want to be second, I think that changes the dynamics again. And then maybe being first becomes being second, becomes the equivalent of what being second.
Tell you what, this is
before.
another thing that makes becoming second intentionally even harder, is that you have to not allow it to become widely known that that's what you're trying to do. So not only do you need to be almost as good as first, number one, you need to hit this very tight boundary between first and third, but you've also got to keep it completely secret what you're doing and why. Becoming second now looks like it's the hardest possible thing to do in any competition. But like, you get the logic of it. You're convinced by what I'm saying, that second is hard.
I can't think. I'm trying desperately to think of competitions where that wouldn't be the case. The only thing, if no one knows other than you that you're trying to get second,
and also it's magnanimous as well, because you don't get the prize, you don't get the championship, you don't get the leaderboard. It's even got this martyrdom aspect as well.
Fuck.
Everything about becoming second on purpose just absolutely strikes out.
It's also more difficult because you're choosing to deny yourself glory. It's not the difficulty of the task; it's the denial of, actually, I am. Well, you don't have to be almost as good as the first person. You probably have to be as good as them.
I think you have to be as good as them, because you need that mastery that allows you to control your position in the ranking.
So you have to be as good as the first person, but you are also have to willingly deny yourself glory.
Yeah.
But I think something like the World Cup, where there's like these teams, and then once you're in the final, there's only two of you left.
Yeah.
If only your team knew we need to tank it, then that would be a piece of
That's
piss.
easy.
I mean, you still have to get there. You still have to be good enough to get to the World Cup final.
That's an
so
easier
you're
one.
Still right.
It's easier to get into second place then if you're as good as the first place team, right? Because if all the seeding is fair, then you should both end up in that final and you just throw it.
Oh my God, seconding.
Seconding. Yeah. I think seconding should get big. But not too big. Because as we say, it ruins the whole game. Because let's say everyone is into seconding. And we'll go try and talk universally, so it applies to all competitions. Do you think everyone would, just like try and perform badly from the beginning? What's a seconding strategy?
I think as soon as...
Because the seconding strategy... No, because actually the seconding strategy...
You can't all perform badly.
Well, no, the seconding strategy, you wouldn't start performing badly. You have to start performing at your very best and then just tail it off, right? You tail it off near the end.
Yeah, it's
so
as whatever the equivalent of a finish line approaches the end of the contest...
Just tail it off.
But you need to be really good up to then.
Yeah, you need to be almost as good as first place.
But
or
are we
as
saying,
good.
Is this just is this in a world where everyone knows that second place is the goal, or not?
I'm just working out to what degree would it ruin it if everyone started seconding? Because I'm starting to think
it would fuck it.
I'm starting to think maybe it wouldn't fuck it that much. Okay, so let's just go back to a race, right? 100 meters. Up until the very last second or two. It's a normal 100 meters. Right? Because everyone's like, I need to get as close to first place as I can. Maybe even get to first place. But just before the finish line.
So what if you found yourself in first place and then you wait?
You just need to slow down just enough to have only one person overtake you.
Right. Okay, no. You've somehow got into first place. You're well fucking clear.
Yeah.
And then you get to the finish line, and then everyone gets to the finish line, but then no one wants to be third, fourth, or first. So everyone sort of stopped, looking across each other. Shit.
Yeah.
Like going forward a little bit, and then once you have to. So it'd be the start of the race, 90% of the race.
Yeah.
And then on that finish line, that everyone would eventually catch up, surely.
Well, let's not forget as well.
Have to, because the person.
You think if everyone was seconding, everyone would get just before the finish line, and they'd all stand still.
Yeah, because they don't want to. Yeah, because
because don't forget that in this new seconding world, coming first is the next best thing.
Yeah,
whereas
but why would you willfully
who gives a
do
shit?
That?
Huh?
Why? Yeah, but you wouldn't willfully put yourself in first. You want second. So you're like, come on, you be first. You be first. You don't want to be first. You want to be second. So you're looking, trying to go like, oh, go on, lad, just go over the line. And then but then you've got to be like,
if you start going towards it, I'll go faster than you. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I promise. Prisoner's dilemma, golden balls.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You couldn't do it. Or
everyone's debating with each other.
I just think that was a big competition. Yeah, everyone. Yeah, you just be stood at the finish line, looking at each other.
Well, I guess what would happen, like, if you're talking about, like, football matches, at the last one, people would just be scoring own goals. Like,
yeah, big time.
At the last one, everyone would want to fuck up their own chances as best as they can.
Try and get people sent off.
Yeah.
Well, no, actually,
But that might be fun.
You want the people on to help you lose.
Yeah. It might be fun to watch, like, people perform. A lot of competitions, people perform as best as they can right up until the last minute, and then they'll try to just underperform. At first, that sounded ridiculous, but the idea of people standing still at the finish line now seems
It's what would happen. I'm confident that that's what would happen. But only specifically with races, like cycling or running.
Yeah. Yeah, in, like, bracketed tournaments where it's, like, one team versus another, you've just got loads of people playing as hard as they can, and then one where everyone wants to lose.
You'd have to put in, and that would totally change the dynamic of the game, which would make a really interesting final. But you'd also have to put in stuff like what counts as cheating, as in cheating with the criteria of second.
You can't police whether or not people are trying as hard as they can, because it's just unpoliceable.
Yeah, exactly. But so you can't quite police that, but.
Yeah. Imagine trying to stomp out seconding as a sporting authority.
Yeah, what would you put in place? Or a fight?
How could you?
An MMA fight.
How could you?
An MMA fight, they just look at each other. Or they try and get knocked out? How do you try and get knocked out?
MMA fights work on points, right? Or is it just on knockouts?
I don't know. I'm an ignoramus.
I know that a lot of boxing and contact stuff like that is on points.
You're trying to lose. Yeah. So how can you lose points? The other person doesn't want. They want to lose points.
Yeah.
So they both just salmon onto the floor.
You would get a lot of just everyone's been trying their absolute best. What if like seconding was something that was known within the sporting community, not to the officials and not to the public, and no one could work out what was happening. And afterwards, all the sports people are very tight-lipped about it all. But it's happening across all sports.
Why would that happen?
Everyone's seconding.
A demon visits the sports people and says, if you win,
why do you have to have a demon?
You win, then because I'm trying to think of all means by which.
Yeah, why? I think a way more plausible one than a bloody demon.
What? All right. What's that?
So as sporting competitors,
what's more plausible than a demon?
Listen to me. What you need. Okay, as sports people, you are gripped with this idea that you want to be an exemplar. You want to be the best of the best.
Yeah.
Right? You want to be a Pokemon master.
Yeah.
Once you have the idea, once you realize the truth that seconding is a greater truth.
The truth.
Well, it is the truth.
Okay, yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, exactly. So you're there scoffing at being
so
the truth.
So it's the realization. I'm scoffing.
It takes one person to realize, and then they'll talk to their peers in the sport. Only people that will understand how important this is to them. Other people in the sporting community.
So you're saying it doesn't necessitate a demon or any kind of intervention. It just necessitates
one person realizing, and it's a full domino effect across all sports.
But how does it spread?
Because I think you'd think you were like in the same way that I felt the need to tell you when I had this idea, because I felt insane. It's such an idea from the fringes of thoughts that you need to verify it with another intelligence.
Just like Federer just goes, hold on.
We're all seconding now. If you want to be the best in the world, you need to second. And I believe that. Seconding is the only proof that you're the real best.
But only if you've done it intentionally.
Yeah. Oh, an accidental second doesn't count. That means you're the second best. Yeah. Which is why, actually, maybe they wouldn't talk to other people. If you want to truly second, you can't go up against
another seconder.
Another seconder. Because you need to be second to a genuine first place.
Which is where the demon comes in.
I don't think you need the demon. The moment.
Listen, boy. Listen to me. You must second. Speak nothing of this.
Oh, so the demon doesn't issue any threats, any rewards. It just gives an imperative statement.
It doesn't fucking need to. It's appeared to you in your bedroom. It's got huge black wings covered in crow's feathers and it's glowing purple.
Yeah, and
it's got gargantuan
plague
teeth,
Dr. Math.
Fangs, yellow teeth dripping with drool and like blood and huge.
So we say the threat is implicit.
Dish-like eyes with snake bit in the middle.
Hello.
You didn't need to say anything. It's
Hello.
a demon.
You're doing like a Sesame Street voice.
Hello.
Yeah. Cookie Monster.
Second all.
And what? It'll just say, do this, and you go, well, okay.
No,
it needs to issue a threat.
It to you. No, it just needs to explain the seconding.
Oh, it just explains this idea. If you really want to prove you're the best, you should come second on purpose. Yeah. Goodbye.
Yep.
Do you think the demon should say goodbye? Goodbye.
Farewell.
Yeah.
It spins into a vortex into your belly button.
Oh, not in the belly button.
Yeah, sorry. That's the bit that terrifies.
Yeah.
The demon is
I'm calm as anything, but the moment it's coming near the belly butt, no way. Hard out. I'll come third if needs be.
Mandatory Redistribution Party was created and produced by Sean Morley and Jack Evans. Our main title theme was created by Ella Jean. Additional music for this episode includes Amphion Angelis by John Blow and Yolanga Yaliba, played by Barnaby Walters, with additional untitled tracks provided by Sean Morley. Quick heads up, as of this week we're going to be going down to 1 episode per week, as our current rate of production is wildly unsustainable. If things change in the future, we'll let you know, but in the meantime I hope halving your Mando's intake doesn't leave you too hungry. As ever, if you want to leave us a nice review on iTunes or recommend us to a friend, please don't let us stop you. And if you don't want to and you haven't, then that's good. That's called self-care. Well done for looking after yourself. Have a great life.